Okay, bloopers, Niitaniko Cutjaw, and welcome back to my channel. Today is May 12, 2021, which is the 105th anniversary of the Waco Horror. Now, if you don't know what the Waco Horror is, I'll give you a quick history lesson. 105 years ago to this day, a 17-year-old boy by the name of Jesse Washington was falsely accused of sexually assaulting and murdering his employer's wife. Now, both the employer and his wife were Caucasian. Jesse himself was identified as a black man, although that's not true because he was of Native origin, which never gets discussed. Well, Jesse was dragged through the city from the courthouse, where he was forced to sign a confession against his will, and into the nearest field. In this field, surrounded by half the population of Waco, Texas, he was hanged, dismembered, and burned alive. His body parts were sold to the crowd as souvenirs. And even to this day, the people of Waco, even those who have moved into the area from other places, refuse to openly acknowledge the Waco Horror. Instead, they choose to pretend it never happened. But I am in no way going to allow the memory of Jesse's torture and murder to go unsung. This is because I am a direct descendant of Jesse Washington's family. Now, just to make it clear, I have absolutely no intention of arguing in the comment section, making desperate strides to convince you all that I am indeed a relative of Jesse Washington. If you believe it, which I hope you do because it's completely true, then please continue to watch this video to the end so that I may offer details about Jesse and his family which you might not know. And if you don't believe me, then just click off my video, leave my channel, and move on with your life, because there is no reason for me to lie about this. And I know a lot of people are going to argue and say, well, no, Cutjaw, you're just making this up. You just want attention. You're doing this for clout. How? There is no pride in being associated with a brutal lynching. There are no bragging rights when it comes to identifying with a family who allowed their own family member to be tortured and lynched for a crime he never committed without even openly protesting it. This is a humiliating brand on our family, not just because of what happened, but also because of how helpless the family felt afterward. Trust me, if I just wanted to claim to be a part of Jesse's family for fun or attention, I definitely would have chosen someone else. But Jesse is actually my cousin on my father's side of the family. But before this topic is discussed further, I would like to invite you to become a bluebird if you aren't one already. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on my social media, including Twitter and Instagram. If you would like to support this channel further, you may do so by becoming a patron through Patreon, where you can subscribe to a monthly membership for as low as $2 per month, or give a one-time donation in any amount. If you do choose to become a patron, you'll receive access to exclusive content, including polls, excerpts from my novels, poetry, early videos, exclusive videos, and will even be able to suggest topics for my next videos or my blog site. There's even a chat room where you can speak with me directly. Now, firstly, I'm going to discuss what happened to Jesse, then I'm going to explain how he's related to my family. Again, we know that Jesse was wrongfully framed and tortured and lynched. So what exactly is a lynching? For Caucasians, a lynching was considered a recreational event, a fantastic spectacle, entertainment of the highest form. At some lynchings, tickets were sold and purchased, and snacks were passed around throughout the crowd. Caucasians would bring everyone they knew to these lynchings, their children, their babies, their spouses, or significant others, their neighbors. If you were a Caucasian and you could attend a lynching, you were expected to do so. Much like the lynching of my relative Jesse, most, if not all, of the city attended a lynching. With the exception of those who were at work or those who couldn't attend the event for whatever reason, Caucasians literally swarmed around the courthouse the day Jesse Washington was to be lynched. He had just been forced to sign a confession stating that he did in fact commit the crimes he was accused of, and the instant he exited the courthouse, an enraged mob attacked him as he was dragged several blocks down to the nearest open field. By the time Jesse had been brought to the tree where he was to be lynched, he had been spat on, scratched, and hit with everything from clenched fists to bricks. He was already bloody when they strung him up. The police officers who were lynching him dug a pit underneath him where he was to be burned alive. And he was. At some point, the rope around his neck broke and he fell into the pit, but he was still alive, believe it or not. So he was actively trying to climb out of the fire pit, but the people who surrounded the pit at the top kicked grass and dirt in his eyes, kicked him in the face, stepped on his fingers over and over again until he fell. This time when he fell, he stayed down. After being burned alive, his body was cut into pieces and his fingers, toes, and I believe even his legs were both sold and freely given to members of the crowd. What a lot of people may not know is what happened to the Washington family after this horrific lynching. The Washington family never received justice for what had happened to Jesse. His charred body was never retrieved and his body parts were never obtained. The Washington family was, understandably, terrified after Jesse's murder. They were sought out by many of the same people who had attended Jesse's lynching and were ran out of Waco, Texas. My father is a Washington and his family left Waco, Texas after Jesse's lynching due to both fear and for being harassed by the Caucasians in the city. In the end, it was actually discovered that Jesse Washington's employer had killed his own wife and framed Jesse. Also, she had never been sexually assaulted. The norm. Waco, Texas was actually named such after the tribe that used to live in that area. The Waco tribe, spelled Hueco, were pushed out of their tribal grounds when Caucasian men came to build a city there. But there were also many other native tribes that lived in the area, including Waco itself, such as the Choctaw, Kickapoo, and other divisions of the Wichita tribes. It should be believable for Jesse Washington to have been of Native descent, but two key factors caused him to be classified as a black man. Now, there's nothing wrong with being black, it's just that Jesse wasn't black, but Native. The first is that there are many self-hating Natives with anti-melanin attitudes who want to breed their ethnic features and melanin out of existence. Please watch my video series about conscientious ethnic cleansing in the indigenous diaspora in order to hear more about this. I'll link it in the description. But these colorless natives forced Jesse Washington and his family out of the tribe, so they had no official tribal affiliation. The next factor is how Caucasians are always trying to push the rhetoric that if you have brown skin, you're of African origin. Of course, we know this isn't true because there are Asians with skin darker than mine who are 100% Asian. This is partly why I'm extremely frustrated with natives out there who intentionally procreate with Caucasians to produce offspring with increasingly Eurocentric features. It makes it even harder for melanated natives to be taken seriously, and it makes it easier for Caucasians and colorless natives alike to erroneously lump us with black people. The original inhabitants of North America were melanated, period. Now, my family has made efforts to have a memorial put up for Jesse, receive compensation from the event, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, none of these efforts have proven fruitful because the Waco City Council and all its other government branches refuse to openly discuss and acknowledge the Waco Horror. Honestly, if I must say so myself, I really don't believe that anything is going to be done to formally acknowledge the tragedy of my own family member's brutal killing. This just shows how heinous and animalistic Caucasians really are, and I want people to really see and understand this. Really, putting up a memorial just isn't enough because all it'll do is give Caucasians in Waco and all over some false sense of relief without actually doing anything to address the true cause of what took place, of why it took place. Racism. And spare me any of those empty BS comments about how Caucasians are battling racism too, because no, they are not. No one has ever lynched them in mass or burned them alive just for fun, or burned crosses in their front yard, or colonized their country through genocide, rape, and unjust laws, or bring other ethnicities and nationalities into their land to create greater socio-economic competition. But then Caucasians want to turn around and call themselves victims just because of the descendants of the people they've tormented without cause, and even when the descendants themselves are still being actively tormented, might not exactly adore them all the time. They can pack up and fly back to Europe at any point in time, but as a Native American, I can't, because this is my one and only home country. But I really want to hear what you all have to say. Leave your thoughts down below. And if there are any comments disrespecting Jesse Washington or my family, the comment will be deleted and you will be blocked. If this type of content is of interest to you, please do visit my blog or Patreon whenever you get the chance. And with that being said, I'm Cut Jaw. This is the Bone Thread, and I'll see you all in the next video.